It's Monday morning, time for a Monday morning coffee. We had a good weekend. Yesterday was the finissage, the final finissage at the gallery here in The Hague. I've been working with this couple from the beginning of my career, so that means starting from, I think, 1999. The final year of the academy was a tough year. I decided to make my paintings outside. The building of the academy was closed. Well, most of the parts were closed because they were renovating and building at those times. And the painting education and some other educations were temporary at a part of town far away from the center. And it was an industrial location with boats, ports, and I think so halfway through the year I decided to make my paintings outside and to paint boats and water reflections, moving water. But there was a teacher who said he even didn't want to visit me there outside because he was afraid of the water. And in other words, they did not agree with my idea to make paintings outside. And that took a lot of time to discuss with me about making my paintings. And as I told them that I was so fascinated by light and mood and I wanted to paint light and mood, they explained me that I should be able to do this in the studio at the academy without pictures, without sketches, just from the imagination. And this teacher who didn't want to visit me outside made it very clear and simple to me. And he said, when you want to paint light and dark, you only have to start with a painting, with a tube, with white paint and black paint, and then you make one part of the painting white and the other part black. And then you have made your painting with light and dark. And then he stood up and went to the next student. I was 21, 22 at that time, and that made me feel strong in my belief and wish to paint my fascinations. And although they told me several times that my paintings looked like paintings from an old man, I knew I wanted to make these kind of paintings. But when I graduated in 1998, I fortunately immediately found this place, this art studio, and I knew I should find a confidential way to start my own career. And then there was this gallery here in the center of The Hague, and they believed in me and even sold my first paintings. And yeah, that was really a very, very good start, because they showed me that there is an audience for this kind of work, and there is much more than what the teachers at the academy told me. I think we can conclude that teaching art is really a tough job. It's really hard to explain what art should be and how you can make it. I had company of an art student last week. He has his own Dutch podcast. It's really a good podcast, and we had a good conversation. I will share the link of this podcast in the description. He told me quite the same experience as we had at the academy. Although my academy time is already 25 years or longer ago, but he told me how he felt while the teachers were watching his work. And for example, they told him that they missed experiment in his work, and then from that time they made the appointment that there should be shown more experiment in the work. Well, that's something that you never forget as a student, and you take that very seriously. But saying someone that he or she must show more experiment in the work is a very strange advice, in my opinion. To me, it sounds the same as telling your children at home that they must show more playtime, or they should play more, making more stupid faults to learn, experimenting and playing, and see your own faults, your mistakes is a natural way of exploring a process. And the only thing I think a teacher must do is take care that you feel the opportunity and the freedom to experiment, and that you want to experiment. But having the feeling that you must experiment is impossible. You must feel free. You must feel free. It's impossible to say that. You can ask a student if he or she feels free to experiment. If not, then you have to change your style of teaching, I think. So teaching art is, I think, difficult, maybe sometimes impossible. I must confess that these days I've finally understand what those teachers wanted to teach me 25 years later. I noticed this since I'm doing those lectures, and when I hear myself talk about creating, sometimes I realize that this is maybe what those teachers wanted to say those days. But in my opinion, most of them weren't able to do this in a motivating way, so you know what I mean. They weren't always funny and lucky, but very serious, and sometimes really irritated when the process wasn't going fast enough for them. And yeah, then it's really hard for a student to feel free to experiment, for example, and to make beautiful work, because you always feel that they are watching over your shoulder and don't show patience for your process. But I'm so thankful for your comments and emails and messages I received, that the videos I make seem to be really helpful, and lots of you write me that you learn so much. And that's interesting, because I'm not consciously teaching in my videos. I'm at work and this camera is here, and I only talk about what's on my mind, so that I don't forget it later, and I can remind later what kind of ideas and insights may be helpful and interesting. And actually, this is the way painters used to learn in the old days. In the 16th and 17th century, you went to a painter in town and you cleaned his brushes the first weeks, and then you had a look over his shoulder how he made his paintings. And when you were a good student, maybe you could prepare the canvas, and then later you could even touch the paintings, and then after several years you became a painter. These videos work maybe the same. I'm doing my work, and you are able to look over my shoulder, and you can ask some questions in the comments, and then sometimes I take some time to answer these questions if I'm able to do that. This is really a motivating way to teach art, I think. It's better than arriving in an academy without any brushes and paint and only watching what other people are doing, and then you say that they do it wrong. If they do it wrong, then please show how you can do it right. And the internet is really the best way to do this. You take your time when you feel free to watch these videos, and if you don't like this kind of work, then you look for someone else. It's endless. You can find anything on the web, and find your way, your style, your techniques that you need to make your kind of work. You're totally free. One of you wrote that he didn't like a square-sized watercolor because a rectangle format should be more naturally, because we look in that way, he told us, from left to right. But I disagree. You always look from left to right, but also from above and then downstairs. So maybe a circle would be the most natural framed size for a painting. But honestly, but my wish is not to make paintings that come very close to nature. I think a painting should be the nature. It must be a good painting. It must look naturally in a way that the composition is right. The colors collaborate. The contrasts are slightly perfect. And while you're making these paintings, you notice that they are not matching reality. That what you see, I spoke a lot about this in other videos, but what you're looking at shows different contrasts, different colors. With recording music, it's the same, right? So you put several microphones and you record your guitar, your piano, drums, and so on. And when you listen it back, it doesn't sound natural at all. So you need to mix it. You need to equalize it. Although you really put the microphones very consciously in the right place with the right ambient, it's really important that you equalize and compress your sound to make it sound naturally and sound right. And with painting, I feel totally the same. A red color does not show its strength without a cold blue, a cold green color next to it. Even when you don't find these colors in reality, you need to use them because the colors need to collaborate. So saying that a square-sized painting is not natural, I think it doesn't make sense to me, actually. This composition was, for me, the best in a square size because there was more balance in the composition. And the rectangle-sized painting looked, in my eye, more weak. Certainly the left part. Like this rectangle painting of my studio looks also quite weak, that higher part. So that's why I wanted to cut it off. I still want to do that, but first I will try to make the that higher part stronger in a certain way. And if I won't succeed, then I want to cut it off. Because I really miss the strength of that lower part. I miss that in the upper part. Well, I'm curious what you guys would do with dripping watercolor paint on the paper. I personally, I love it. Although this is half the painting which is showing dripping watercolor paint, but I like that in the same way as I like that several sculptures show pieces of rough stone in their art piece as well. Of course, it has nothing to do with the subject. It has only something to do with that an artist maybe wants to show that he or she loves the material, loves the rough stone or the wet watercolor paint. For me personally, here it's too much. I think I would cut it off over here somewhere. But I'm not sure yet. We will see that later, and we will see as well if it needs some trees as well. Actually, this building is behind trees. There are green branches now in winter in the foreground, but I didn't want to paint them because the rhythm of this architecture is really busy. And I thought that I would paint that away with another rhythm, organic rhythm of the branches. So that's something for next week to check out. And enjoy your weekend. Thank you for watching and joining me this week. And I'll see you next week.